Welcome to the Budget Mom YouTube channel. I'm Kamiko Love from thebudgetmom.com, and today I'm doing something really special. For over the last 4 years, I have been sharing with you my real budget numbers, my budget overviews, my budget recaps on Instagram and over here on YouTube. After doing it for 4 years, I felt like it was time to bring in some diversification. So I went from getting paid twice a month to now being fully self-employed and getting paid once a month. And when that change happened, I had a lot of readers reach out and said, hey, is there any way that you could show us different examples of what your budget by paycheck workbook and method would look like with a schedule that's more closely relatable to mine? So what we decided to do is to allow our readers to submit their information and real numbers and budgets, and I would share that information with you and how I would organize and manage their money using the Budget by Paycheck method. So today I'm sharing my first real life budget from a real reader who submitted her numbers and information, and I'm going to be showing you how I would organize this person's budget. Now, this is going to be a lot of information in this video. And so if you are new to the Budget Mom YouTube channel or the Budget Mom in general, make sure that you check out the links in the description of this video so you can learn more about what the Budget by Paycheck method is and my financial philosophy. So let's just jump right in, and we're going to literally take it step by step. So the first step is, what is the Budget by Paycheck method? The Budget by Paycheck method involves 9 different steps. Now, if you are familiar with my financial freedom steps, which you can find in the description of this video, some of them do overlap. But the Budget by Paycheck method simply is discovering your why, tracking and categorizing your spending, identifying your regular bills, figuring out your variable spending so you can become and use an all cash or cash envelopes in your budget. A budget calendar, you need to create that and implement that in your life. Prioritizing your savings goals, figuring out a debt plan and pay off your debt. A paycheck, using a paycheck bill tracker. Now, the title of my budgeting method, Budget by Paycheck, is pretty self-explanatory. But instead of squeezing yourself into a regular monthly budgeting box, I want you to look at budgeting your money every single time you get paid. So you're now budgeting your money based on your pay schedule rather than just monthly. And then tweaking and perfecting your budget as you go along. So that's the Budget by Paycheck steps. I'm going to walk you through this real life budget using these steps. Now, the first thing is the why. Discovering your why and the purpose on this financial journey. Why are you wanting to get better at your finances? So with this reader's budget, she said her son. Her son is her why. It's to finally get out of debt and have financial freedom to live a happier life. So that's her why. Now, her personal story. This is a little background information about her kind of financial struggles and why she was seeking and wanting to reach out for help. My financial journey has always been a struggle for me. I simply like to charge my credit card. I was addicted to shopping. I always thought I needed to buy stuff to make me feel better. It got really bad when I went through a rough breakup. I thought I needed to buy things so that other people would like me. Sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud. I also thought buying clothes equaled happiness. Boy, was I wrong. I would max out my credit cards before the month was over, and then stress and the anxiety would set in when I would see my statement and try to figure out how I was going to pay it off. I wouldn't sleep at night. I would use every dollar I had to pay off my credit cards, and the cycle would just start over again. It's funny because when I read this story, I can relate a lot. That was essentially me back in 2011. For me, it stemmed from self-confidence issues I would spend to make myself feel better because I didn't like the way I looked. I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. And then, of course, when I went through my divorce, I dealt with other emotional issues that caused me to go out and spend and rack up my credit cards. So I can relate to this story a lot. Now, a little bit more about her story. She's a single mom to a soon be 11-year-old son named Noah. They currently live in Canada. And her son Noah is huge on activities and sports. As you guys know, in Canada, hockey is a very big thing, but hockey also means super, super expensive. Noah also does camp. He also does other sports. And so I think it's really important to mention when I received this budget, now this reader has only been budgeting twice. This is her only second budget. And when she sent me her information, I did one thing first. The first thing that I did is I looked at her total income. I looked at her regular bills, the cash envelopes, her variable spending, what she would need for gas and groceries. She supplied that information to me. And then I looked at what she had left over every month. She had $685 left over every single month for her savings goals, to put extra towards her debt, whatever her main priority goal is. And I quickly realized there needed to be drastic changes. Her sinking funds, now sinking funds are saving for a little bit every single month to reach a particular goal in the future, like a holiday or event or a sporting activity or something, a sporting event or something like that. Her sinking funds alone was over what she had left over every month. And I reached out to her and I let her know, hey, there has to be drastic cuts and prioritization to the sinking funds that you have listed, because it's simply not in your budget to do so. So what I'm going to be showing you today is what she submitted and my changes that I wanted to make. So the next thing on your the budget by paycheck method is tracking and categorizing your spending. And it's my assumption that they already did that because they supplied all the information, like for instance, her income. Let's look at that. Now, it's really important to mention that this reader is on a weekly pay schedule. She gets paid every Tuesday for $786. But she also has other sources of income that she gets monthly. She gets a Canada Child Tax Credit of $354 every month on the 20th, and she also rents out her basement for extra money every month. And she gets that rental of $790 on the 1st of every month. Now, I wanted to mention also, when she supplied her information, she said two very critical things to me. One, she is getting a tax refund, and she's estimating about $6,500 for that tax refund, and she's getting that shortly. She also receives child support, but it's inconsistent, irregular, and it's sporadic. Though she said about $166 once or twice a month, and it could be any day. So what she uses that $166 for is to just throw extra debt payment. So she doesn't include that $166 in her budget. If and when she does get it, she throws it towards her debt. So let's go ahead very quickly and look at her financial goals. All right. Now, of course, her main goal is paying off debt. And you could see that as her why right here, to finally get out of debt. That's her number one goal. But she also has savings goals. And we'll get to this step in step number 6 of the budget by paycheck method. But her number one goal is paying off debt and these sinking funds. So if we go back, the next step after tracking and categorizing your spending, you want to look at and identify your regular bills. Here is this reader's bills. We have the date of all the bills, what the bills are, and the amount she has to pay. Now, I added those up, and they total $2,892. So the next thing we do is we want to identify your variable spending, which is your cash envelopes. And she did that, and that's right here. Every single month, she puts and has cash envelopes for these categories and these amounts. And those equal $780. Now, the very first thing I did is I went, okay, here's her fixed expenses, the bills that she has to pay month after month. This is what she's needing to cover her variable spending, like groceries, gas, fun, beauty, clothing, household, pets, and miscellaneous. How much income do we have left over? And like I said, we were left over with that $685. So the next thing that, after identifying your fixed expenses and your variable spending, your cash envelopes, it's time to actually start organizing what we call a budget calendar. Now, I want to mention too that if you are working with a weekly paycheck, or numerous paychecks in the month. When you are just starting the budget by paycheck method, you're going to have 1 month of what we call a wacky month, a transition month, where you're transitioning into a new pay schedule. So the amounts that you come up for your budget in that first month might not be 100% going forward each and every time. It's not the normal. And it's also important that you budget and plan out this method 2 or 3 months in advance. So with this reader, we're talking about February, but guess what? We budgeted into March because things are going to get even out and become a little more normal as you go through the process month after month or paycheck after paycheck, depending on your pay schedule. It's also important to note that what you're seeing here came from a lengthy process of trial and error. So it wasn't like I just stuck this on a calendar and said, perfect, done. No, it was sitting down for a couple hours and saying, okay, if we pay this bill with this paycheck, is she going to have enough money to pay this bill with this paycheck? And if I pay this expense and this sinking funds here, am I going to need to move it to this payday so she has more money left over here? It was literally trial and error, and that's what you have to do. Getting things on a budget calendar is your way of figuring out what expenses you need to pay with what paycheck, and not just your expenses, but your savings and your debt payoff and your events and your holidays. So in February, this is how we organized her budget calendar, and let me show you that. So every single highlighter color means something different. So if it's highlighted in blue, she paid that with her last paycheck in January. And she reached out to me and said, hey, I paid these already with my last paycheck in January. So we highlighted those ones in blue. If you're seeing it in pink, we're using the rental income she received on the 1st and the paycheck she received on the 4th. We're combining paychecks. So she's going to pay her property taxes, the line of credit, her bank fee, and her first mortgage payment. Now, she splits her mortgage payment in 2. So she actually makes 2 mortgage payments, one in the beginning of the month and one at the end of the month. If you're seeing it in green, she's using her paycheck on the 11th. And if it's in this orange brownish color, she's using her paycheck on the 18th to cover those things. Now, her income has a square box around it. And everything that she is paying goes with the coordinated color for her paydays. That's how we organize, and I organize the budget calendar. The highlighter method is really going to allow you to see things very quickly, visually, what's going on with each one of your pay schedules. Now, you might say, well, Miko, nothing's highlighted for this last paycheck on January 25th. There's nothing highlighted in yellow besides the paycheck. That's because, and this is why it's so important to budget out, look at March. Here's what she's paying with that last paycheck on the 25th. Do you see how important it is to have 2 calendars in front of you, especially if you're using multiple paychecks? Because your last paycheck of the month is going to be covering things that are happening the following month. So that's how we highlighted the budget calendar. Now, after your budget calendar, this next step in the budgeting process is prioritizing your savings goals. Why is prioritizing your savings goals so important? Because you need to know where to throw the extra income that you do have. And a lot of people who are on their debt payoff journeys, they're wanting to save also. So with her, she initially sent me savings goals. So she wants to start an emergency fund. She has nothing in place for that. She wants to start college savings for her child, Noah, and she wants to build a checking account cushion. Now, she did not send me the amounts for these, so guess what? I suggested amounts for her. I want her to start with a $1,000 emergency fund, and I want her to build a $200 checking account cushion. Even though she didn't provide the dollar amounts, I can still tell you the time horizon for these savings goals. Emergency fund is a short-term goal. Building a checking account cushion is a short-term goal, but saving for her child's college, that's long-term. Here's the problem that we encountered with the sinking funds. What you see in black is what she supplied to us, and it was very, very noticeable right away that we weren't going to be able to fund all of these sinking funds, because here's the thing. Here's when she needs to save by. And as you can see, some are fast approaching. Like we have her son's birthday in April that she wanted $400 for. That essentially gives us one month. We have the month of March to come up with enough money for her son's birthday in April. And then we have Noah Camp, the Toronto trip. Now, keep in mind, and when you're looking at these, a lot of these are for her son. So like Noah Camp that he does in June. She does a Noah hockey payment that's due in June. She does another Noah hockey payment that's due in September. And then he has sports payments that are due in May. So when we were looking at these, we had a lot of them that are coming up, but she had nothing saved for them. So what does that mean? It means right now she needs to give up some of her sinking funds, focus on the ones that are fast approaching, and once those are reached, she then has another 12 months she has to save, which means that the amount that she has to save every month goes down so she can focus on other sinking funds. So we said, first off, we need to divide what she wanted for her son's birthday, that just this year, we needed to cut it in half. It just simply was not in her budget to do $400 in 1 month. We also said for the Toronto trip, I guess it's a business trip, and everything is covered besides the fun and a little bit of spending money. And she wanted $400 by June, and it's just not in her budget to do that. So we cut that in half by $200. And that's only this one time. This is only this year, because here's the thing. When she hits that in May, she has another 12 months to save up for it. It's a recurring yearly business trip. So we have those sinking funds. So we have the savings goals established. Once we have the savings goals, we need to talk about her debt. This is her current debt. Now, she did not put these in order of importance or priority. I gave her my suggestions on what debt I would pay off first. So she's working with 4 different debts. She has a line of credit that has $8,000, and she's dealing with 13.64% interest rate. She has a credit card that has a balance of $5,000. She's paying 30% or 29.99% interest on that card. She has a loan for $39,000 that has 21% interest. And then she has her mortgage at $220,000. She didn't give me an interest rate, but I do have the minimum payments. Now, when I first saw this debt, I knew immediately what debt I would pay off. I go towards paying off the debts with the highest interest rate first, because here's the thing. This loan at $39,000 with 21% interest is a killer. And you'll see that when we work through her budget. It's a killer. It's like $710 a month. She pays for that loan. So much of it is going towards interest. And not only that, her credit card. So this is what I decided to do. I'm going to pay off the credit card first, then the loan, then the line of credit, then the mortgage. Do you see how I'm doing it based on what interest rates are? Now, if you were to do this with the smallest balances first, you would tackle this credit card and then move to the line of credit, but it makes no sense to do that line of credit next when you're dealing with such a high loan amount here with such high interest rate. So this is the debt that we're dealing with. Now, it's important that I want to mention, she told me that she is getting, and I have my notes right here, she is getting $6,500 for her tax refund, and her question to me was, Mika, what debts do I pay off with my tax refund? What goals do I work on? I'm going to suggest that she pays off that credit card, wipes out that $5,000, and then whatever she has left, I would establish an emergency fund and build that checking account cushion. So she accomplishes 3 huge goals with that tax refund. Now, her question to me was, Miko, should I, because in her personal story, you heard that she has a really hard time with credit cards. She spends on them anytime she has an open balance or an open limit to spend. And her question to me was, should I just go ahead and close and cancel that account? Now, depending if you close or cancel a credit card after paying it off, does it affect your credit score? And that is dependent on a couple of different factors. If the card you are about to close is the longest history on your credit report, your credit score is going to drop because all of a sudden you just gave up the lengthiest credit history account on your credit report. Now, of course, your debt to income ratio is going to be better, and that's going to help improve your score. So I have a great article that I'm going to link in the description of this video talking all about, hey, should I cancel or close my credit card after paying it off, and the factors that you need to look at to see if it's going to affect your credit score in a positive or negative way. So I can't answer that question right now because I don't know the full details of that credit card. The first thing I would look at is how long has it been open compared to the other things open on your credit report. So the next thing that we want to talk about is getting it onto a paycheck bill tracker. Now, the paycheck bill tracker is essentially your budget. So the first thing we're working with is the paycheck on the 1st and the 4th. She's got rental income and her paycheck. She's going to be paying these bills, and you can see that on our calendar here. So these ones in pink are the ones we're putting on our paycheck. All of these equal $1,306, and she's left with $270 left over. Well, we decided to go ahead and fund her sinking funds, her variable envelopes. She needs money to spend for her variable envelopes. Her variable envelopes equal $270. Now, you might be asking, Miko, how did you come up with these amounts? So the amount she gave to us for her variable spending is in monthly form. So we took that number, divided it by 4 or 5, and said, okay, well, we need to give this to her every single week. And then we tweaked and perfected those numbers to fit into her budget as we went along in her budget here. Now with this, she doesn't have any money left over for sinking funds or debt or savings, but that's okay. The next thing that you want to do, once your calendar is done, it's just basically putting what's on your calendar into budget form. And you can see that. Now we're dealing with the paycheck on the 11th. She's paying everything that's in green, and you can see that. Now, it's really important that on our calendar, look what we're doing. This loan payment on the 15th, because it's you can see from her bills, it's like $710. That eats up a lot of her paycheck. So we split it. And you'll see 2 little circles of color. $219 is what we're paying with the paycheck on the 1st and the 4th, and then we're paying another $492 with the paycheck on the 11th. We just split it between paychecks. And that's shown on my calendar by highlighting that bill in 2 different colors. Now, after paying the bills, we're left with $155. We decided, okay, it's a new week. We need to give her more food money and gas money and take care of some of her variable spending. And again, another paycheck where we're not putting anything towards debt or savings, but that's okay. Now let's look at the paycheck that we're getting on the 18th and 20th. We're using 2 sources of income, that paycheck and the tax credit. We are only paying 1 bill, her second mortgage. She's left all of a sudden with $505. Now, the very first suggestion I would have for this reader is call and change your bill due dates. Because looking at her calendar, do you see how every single one of her bills is due before the 15th of the month? It's really tight with her paychecks in the beginning of the month, and all of a sudden, she has tons of money left over at the end. To even out what you're left over with every single paycheck, calling and changing your bill due dates, literally calling the company and saying, hey, my current bill due date is on the 16th. Can I change that to the 21st? And they'll probably tell you yes. So that's the first tip. Because all of a sudden, do you see how we have so much money left over? So we're going to pay that second mortgage payment. We can take care of the rest of her sinking funds. All of a sudden, we now have money for her sinking funds, and we take care of those right here. Now, how did we determine how much to put towards her sinking funds? We took the yearly amount that she needed. We divided it by how many months she has to save. And we said, okay, we need to save this every single month if we want to hit our goal. So between all these different paychecks in February, we looked at and said, okay, well, we can afford to do this much, this paycheck. Okay, we can do it this much, this paycheck. At the end of the month, were we able to hit that goal? We tweaked and perfected those numbers as we went along to make sure she could hit that monthly goal within all those different paychecks. So we were able to do these amounts for these sinking funds, and she's left with $2 left over. We're throwing it towards the checking account cushion. Now, you might think it's silly. Omiko, it's only $2. Do I really have to write it down on your sheet? You betcha. Every dollar needs a plan. Because eventually what's going to happen, it's not going to just be $2. It's going to become 50 and 100 and 25. And those amounts add up. So let's look at her very last paycheck on the 25th. So as you can see, we're covering things that are happening in March. We're left with $456 after we pay the bills. We're going to do groceries and gas. Now, if you're having to decide what variable envelopes to fund, you better make sure you're taking care of your necessities first. Food, gas. Those should be your two main variable spending categories, because you need gas to go to work to make an income, and you need food in your family's bellies. So then we have, after taking care of those variable cash envelopes, we have $331. Guess what? We're taking care of those sinking funds, those savings goals, because her son Noah, he has camp and hockey coming up in June. Now, one of the things that I did suggest to her, and as a single mom, I would hate to hear this, but really looking back on cutting back on some of her son's sports activities until we can get down a little bit more of this debt and have a little more flexibility in our budget to fund those activities for her son. Now, I made it work with what she wanted to do, but if it were me, I would really kind of want to build up that emergency fund, maybe 1 year of maybe doing hockey, but not the sports. So that was a suggestion that I did make. Now that gets us through February. Do you see how February was kind of that transition wonky month? Well, look what happens when we get into March. Now March is the same way. We highlighted all of her different expenses, what are going to be paid with each paycheck. And we did the same exact process, but as we are walking through this process, things started to even out a little bit more. Now, when we were doing this, we realized that we were only taking care of her savings goals. We weren't even doing extra towards her debt payments. But don't forget, she gets that child support once or twice every month for $166 that she can use to throw to her debt. So that's what she can use as extra income for debt payments right now. It's very important to mention with her sinking funds, like one of her priorities was Christmas, she can start saving for that sinking fund as she starts reaching these sinking funds that are coming up in the beginning of the month. Because remember, the longer time horizon you have to save for something, it's going to be a less amount that you have to spend every single month towards that sinking fund. And you'll free up more money to throw at other sinking funds in your budget, or she can choose to pay off debt. Now, one of the things I wanted to mention is in her bills, I have one other suggestion. In her bills, she is paying a monthly bank fee of $11 every month. And I asked her, why are you paying that bank fee? And she said, well, Miko, my bank told me that if I don't keep at least $300 in my checking account and it goes below that minimum, they charge me that $11 every month. And as I live paycheck to paycheck, I don't have $300 in my account each month. So if you are living paycheck to paycheck, my number one suggestion would be find a bank or credit union. Now, I always suggest credit unions that have free checking accounts. Because as you're working through the process, this last thing that you need if you're living paycheck to paycheck is paying these stupid bank fees to these big corporation banks. The reason credit unions, and I recommend those, is because they're member owned. So I would tell her and suggest to her today to start looking for other banking options or credit union options in her area that aren't going to be charging her $11 every month just for having a checking account. So I know a lot of you who are looking at this method and you're like, oh my gosh, that seems like so much work. Like a budget should just be like writing some numbers on a piece of paper and I'm trying to stick to those limits, right? But the budget by paycheck method isn't just a budgeting method. It's a self-discovery method. It's a lot of work. And you can't even, for me, I don't even count it as work because I'm improving my life by doing the work. But it's a lot up front because there are so many things about habits that you've probably already established with your finances, boxing yourself in using a monthly budget. It's a big mindset shift to get onto a paycheck schedule. And you're going to have to walk through that process, and nothing is going to teach you more about your finances and what you have going on with your money in your real life than going through this process. I can tell you that right now. So when you're working through and saying, okay, what expenses should I be paying with this paycheck and on this date? Take out a blank paycheck bill tracker. Start writing it down and saying, okay, I get paid on the 1st and 4th. Don't be afraid to combine paychecks either. If you have paychecks that are really close together, save yourself the trouble and the work and just combine the paychecks and do one budget. But write down your income and say, okay, I have this bill due, this bill due, this bill due. After I pay those bills, here's what I have left over. What do I need to take care of with the money that's left over? Okay, I can afford groceries, gas. And I'll tell you right now, when we worked through this reader's budget, me and my assistant, I sat down with her because I really want her to see the process of what this is just starting out. Even I had to go through this process when I started out. And now I can tell you right now, I've been doing it for 9 years and I take like 15 minutes every day to track my spending. But my budget is pretty much the same. The structure is the same every single month. It's very, very easy now. But you have to get to that point. And it took us a good 2 or 3 hours to do trial and error and really look at what was going to work with each paycheck. But there are some foundational things that you need to take care of. So it looks like a lot of work in the very beginning, but it does get easier as you go. And you can probably see that from my budget overview and recaps here on YouTube and Instagram. It's a very easy process, but you got to do the work first. But that work that you're doing will change your life. I can guarantee that. So this is the first real life budget here on YouTube. We will be doing a real life budget every single month, showing you how to break down all the different scenarios. Because here's the thing, the budget by paycheck method was created to be customized and personalized for any income, any pay schedule, any family unit, any circumstance. It was truly created in that way, and I want to show you how that is done using real life examples. If you found this video helpful, please like it and don't forget to subscribe.